Today's show is sponsored by Okta, the leading independent identity solution. Okta provides best-in-class authorization so your customers and workforce can safely access what they need most right when they need it from anywhere. Organizations around the world trust Okta's Identity Cloud to sign in, authorize, and manage users, whether it's employees, contractors, partners, or customers. And with Okta's developer tools, you'll never have to build authentication again. Our customizable code blocks are flexible and future-proof, with easy-to-use APIs and SDKs, so you can do less coding and more shipping. Okta is dedicated to building the most reliable, neutral identity platform because it means protecting more than a login. Identity is protecting people, their ideas, their work, their brilliance. It's protecting your future with confidence. Learn more at okta.com. That's OKTA.com.
Cloudcast Media presents from the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome back to the Cloudcast. We are coming to you live from the massive Cloudcast studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Hope everybody is doing well as we continue to plow through April, the later part of April here, 2021. Let's get right into Cloud News of the Week, kind of an odds and ends portion of Cloud News of the Week. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, so let's dive right into it. First off, Dell announced that it is finally spinning out VMware. This has been rumored for well over a year that Dell was looking to kind of shore up their financial situation, be able to take some cash out of their ownership stake in VMware, also take some cash out of VMware's dividend and so forth. So that's planned, not an official date yet, but they laid out the finances of what that's going to look like both for Dell shareholders as well as VMware shareholders. So kind of an interesting situation for the most part. Dell is able to sell off an asset that's up, also be able to take some cash out of the situation, a one-time dividend, and then the speculation begins as to what will happen with VMware. Dell continues to hold a large stake in VMware, somewhat of a controlling stake. That will change somewhat by not necessarily owning all of it, but they still do own a controlling portion of it. But it does begin to have some speculation about what might happen next for VMware. They have not yet announced their new CEO. Still some speculation it'll be Sanjay Poonen, but that has not come to terms yet. And then there's some speculation about who may end up acquiring VMware if they don't necessarily survive as a independent company. So that's not a thing that's going to happen right away, but there is some speculation out there. Maybe it'll be Google, maybe it'll be Intel, maybe it'll be somebody else looking to step up to acquire VMware once they go back to being independent. Next thing on the list, we're beginning to get into quarterly cloud earnings season. IBM announced their first profit in over 4 quarters. So first profit for Arvind Krishnan, new CEO, recent CEO of IBM. Their cloud business grew. Their revenues were up to sort of an annualized run rate of around $21 billion. A lot of that comes out of the division, or that's part of the cloud and cognitive computing group. Red Hat within the IBM was up 17% quarter over quarter. So again, that group continues to grow at a pretty healthy rate. So IBM first profitable quarter, some of that probably coming from the restructuring they're doing around the new company. And then just some changes in the overall cloud speculative market. So interesting to watch that. We will probably have the other cloud providers typically come a couple of weeks after that. So we'll see AWS, Azure, Google, Alibaba, Oracle announced in the next couple of weeks, and we'll cover those. Third thing, in the continuing saga of what is your open source license, Grafana Labs decided to relicense or reallocate the license for the Grafana, Loki, and Tempo projects. Those are being moved to the AGPL v3 license. So this is not the exact same license as adopted by Mongo and some others, but or Elasticsearch and Mongo, but moving to a more restrictive license, and they did sort of cite the way that those companies have evolved their business as sort of a model of what Grafana Labs is trying to do. So this will be an interesting thing to watch. I know there's been a lot of speculation about what happens when you change your model from a very open model to a less permissive model. So that'll be an interesting to watch. And then a couple things that are sort of cloud related and then sort of technology related. Netflix announced their subscriber growth had slowed after massive gains in 2020. They slowed down a little bit. Now they still grew about 24%. But there's some speculation that some of this may have been done because of the competition from other streaming services, HBO, Disney, and plenty of others out there. And some of this is speculation that, this is just, there were so many people that signed up in 2020 because of the pandemic that their growth numbers were probably going to be misforecasted as they try and get back to some sort of normalcy of what viewing patterns look like, as well as sort of a lack of content that was newly created in 2020 because of the pandemic. Then the final thing, and this sort of affects those of you that listen to podcasts, and we're always thankful that you listen to our podcast, Apple announced that it's going to offer a subscription service for podcasts. Now, this will be an optional thing that different podcasts will be able to opt into. So, as of today, the podcast continues to be, the Cloudcast continues to be free. Cloudcast Basic continues to be free. We have no intention of changing that. I know there are plenty of podcasts out there that have moved to a Patreon model. So this Apple model is sort of fashioned after the Patreon model, in which you'd have the ability to, to sign up as a sort of monthly subscriber. So just sort of throwing that out there for those of you that follow the podcast space. Aaron and I don't have any immediate plans to do that. And if we do, we will give you plenty of heads up and make sure that the experience that you get with Cloudcast never really changes unless, you want to change the relationship between us. So with that, kind of wrap up Cloud News of the Week. Like I said, a lot of different odds and ends sort of all over the place in terms of what the news was, but kind of always keeps it interesting because there's always a lot going on. So with that, we're going to wrap up, and Aaron and I get a chance to talk to our good friends over at Intel about kind of the evolution of what's happening with silicon in the cloud right after the break. Today's show is sponsored by Zesty, and Zesty wants to know if you've had enough with managing your AWS commitments. If it were only purchasing commitments, fine. But let's face it, the capacity planning, the back and forth, the ongoing optimization, choosing between 1 year, 3 year, savings plans, reserved instances, don't you want to just get back to being an engineer again? This is where Zesty comes in, a fully automated commitment management solution that achieves over 45% discounts on your EC2 with a 100% buyback guarantee. What does that mean? It means you'll never over-provision again. So join DevOps teams like Gong, Armis, Amdocs, WalkMe, and Firebolt and be an engineer again while achieving the highest savings hands-free. Just go to zesty.co/savings to get your free potential savings evaluation. It takes no more than 5 minutes. That's zesty.co/savings.
Today's show is sponsored by O'Reilly. O'Reilly is known for its animal books, which have helped tech professionals stay ahead for over 40 years. Today, its online learning platform at O'Reilly.com takes learning tech to the next level. Sure, your teams get access to thousands of books and videos, but there's also interactive learning, where they can get hands-on with tech like Kubernetes, Python, Docker, Java, and more in live dev environments. So they learn by doing, not just reading. With live online sessions, your teams learn from the biggest brains in AI, software architecture, cloud, data, programming, and more. They can even prep for tech certification exams with official materials and interactive practice tests. And then there's O'Reilly Answers. You just ask the search engine any tech question, and it takes you right to the best answers from O'Reilly's renowned books. It's why 66% of all Fortune 100 companies give their teams O'Reilly Online Learning. Get a demo today at O'Reilly.com. That's O'Reilly.com.
And we're back. And, Aaron, we thought going into, the last year or so, or actually the last number of years, we kind of felt like, software was eating the world. Every conversation we were having was about software. And I feel like the last 6 months or so, it has been like this resurgence of, hardware discussions, hardware-centric discussions, changes in the industry in the cloud. Are you surprised how much we've sort of seen this sort of reemergence after so many years of software?
Well, it just goes to show you, at a certain level, everything in our industry we tend to call it waves, but it's really more cycles, right? And everything that goes out of phase and then comes back into phase, and history will repeat itself in our industry, if nothing else, right? Everything gets distributed, then everything centralizes, and we repeat, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I'm going to kind of informally call this episode, why silicon matters in the cloud, and there's no better folks to talk to about what's going on in that space than our friends at Intel. So excited to have Garry Binder, who is Chief Security Architect at Intel, join us today to talk about some of that. Garry, welcome to the show. Great to have you on.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. It's good to be here.
So before we dive into this, because obviously this is a space that you cover all the time, give us a little bit of your background. You've got a pretty rich background in quite a few areas of where this intersects the cloud. But give us a little bit of your background before we get started.
Sure. Yeah, I started at Intel quite a few years ago, and I've worked at a couple of different companies and found myself back at Intel, and I have focused on building out solutions, often software-based, but hardware as well. And I spent a lot of time working with security, so everything from networking to development security, best practices, identity and access management, detective controls in the monitoring space, intrusion detection, and so forth, crypto, zero trust. And so I'm one of those guys that I'm always the life of the party, a focus on cybersecurity. So I'm glad to be here.
You're talking about the crypto that is not getting everybody rich with Bitcoin. You got to remind everybody.
The other one, yeah. Although, I wish I had a get rich quick scheme to share with everybody, but I don't. I'm sorry.
So Garry, we've done quite a few shows with Intel actually over the years. This is where we were first introduced to how much Intel really does, especially behind the scenes in public cloud. Like, we'll hear numbers thrown out about how big public clouds are growing, and you'll hear, they're adding so many nodes a day or some of these other things, right? So can you give us a sense of how much Intel has evolved to help really these cloud providers deliver both scale and performance that they do today?
Yeah, sure. And we focus on doing the best we can, and not only doing the best we can, but figuring out how to make our best better on an ongoing basis, and for our customers. And whether it's OEMs or cloud providers, we do our best to focus and make sure that they're getting what they need. So a lot of that really is, in many regards, is assuming the position of closed mouth and open ears, and we work hard to embrace that. And sometimes we do better than other days, but their needs are unique and emerging in many regards, and there's a lot of innovation that goes on there, and a lot of problems that you would see in a massive data center deployment that the industry frankly has never seen before. And so a lot of our work is really understanding and trying our best to put in place technologies that will solve those unique problems. And the partnership that we have to embrace to do that is unique. It's combine that with the fact that turnaround times for a lot of these features is not as fast as we'd like it to be, in that we're building hardware, right? And so software, appreciated the discussion that you guys were having, but from a software perspective, there are times when I can drop a couple of different revisions of a particular software solution out and available on the internet during a single day. We have not yet figured out how to do that from hardware. But you never know. We might, working towards agility and flexibility is something that is top on our priority list as well.
Yeah, it's the the great challenge of having to have very very long foresight into where the world's going to go in 3 years, 5 years, and kind of plan for that today. A few months ago, we had a chance to talk to one of your colleagues specifically about confidential computing, which was an interesting conversation to dive into this intersection between software and hardware and root of trust and those sort of things. We've all sort of learned over time, and neither one of Aaron and I are security experts, but we sort of learned about defense in depth and the importance of that. Can you talk a little more? Because again, like you said, your background really is in security. Like, how are we seeing this really kind of manifest itself in terms of, software nowadays, whether it's, encryption, ciphers or, new code bases that are able to take advantage of some of the stuff that's in the new hardware, right? That's in this new Ice Lake architecture, that's in, it's in SGX and so forth. Like, how is some of that stuff actually manifest itself? We hear about it, but how would people sort of, application developers or system designers, like how would they really kind of go take advantage of this?
Yeah, great question. And I think you hit it squarely on the head with your comments about defense in depth, because a lot of these technologies, and it's interesting. A lot of these technologies are, sometimes a new ingredient of defense in depth. So back in the 70s, defense in depth meant a fence and a dog, and a few other things kind of protecting the mini computer, whatever it happened to be, right? As time has gone on, we've added more things, and those things are, sometimes multi-factor authentication. Of course, we all use this almost every day with our, often with our phones, and so this is yet, confidential computing, I would argue, is yet another further, evolution. In some cases, a revolutionary step in that direction is to provide, more defense in depth and additional controls in another layer, right, where we can add some protections. With SGX, SGX is a technology that Intel has been working on for many years, and has made available on the client for many years, and now in the server space, and it provides some additional controls. Those controls specifically are to provide not only some platform and application attestation to make sure that yes, I am running on a real piece of hardware that has these controls on it, but the applications that I'm running are the ones that I think they are, and so provides those mechanisms, but it also provides some additional protections through encrypted memory, and this is an area where establishing yet that perimeter, another boundary around a portion of an application that runs within memory and has encrypted data, preventing a variety of or helping to make much more difficult a variety of attacks that we've known about as an industry for many years, is what it provides. From an application developer standpoint, there really are a couple of models that we can use to take advantage of SGX, and the first model is one that folks may be familiar with. Is take your application, find a choke point in that application where everything on one side is kind of highly secure. I'm using my keys over there. I've got some of the most sensitive data over there, whether it's privacy or, healthcare data or what have you, and then plop that into what we call an enclave within the processor. And what that does, of course, is make sure that those secrets that we're trying to maintain on the platform are kept as close as possible with the smallest trust boundary. So that's model number one, and what you get out of that one is this kind of maximum performance and flexibility. And model number two, and this is one that we're working on, and a number of our partners in the industry are also helping with, is container based. Is there a way to? And the answer is yes, and otherwise I wouldn't have mentioned it. But is there a way to take a container application and drop that in entirety into an enclave and make it work? And this is an area where we have some extremely promising results, and the benefits here are clearly, the application developers were not necessarily involved in the process. It's something that happened downstream during deployment, and I decided, this microservice, this container, these functions, what have you, are something I really want to protect. And so I'm going to make that decision downstream and put those into an enclave and protect them in that regard.
And Garry, so the enclave, I'm going to take it one step further. In a public cloud context, because that's where we wanted to really talk about all of this. What I'm kind of used to is, okay, hey, let's pick an instance type, and you're presented with this super long list, and it's like, all right, maybe it's based off of processor type or memory type, or does it have a GPU or not, or something like that. How do we raise awareness that some of these native capabilities are available across cloud providers, such as any of the big public clouds that are out there? Like, what, is there a way to expose that in I'll use the term the pick list, or is there software features that come out? How do we raise awareness or exposure into something that's going to take advantage of Enclave or SGX or something like that?
Right. Yeah. Great question. This is the practical aspect of okay, I want to go use it. Right. So what I'll tell you is we had a fantastic launch of our Ice Lake family, third generation Xeon processor earlier this month, and so there's while we've shipped quite a few units, over 100,000, prior to that launch. There's the best is yet to come, as they say. And so there are some cases currently where individuals can go out and already start the process of identifying, what cluster do I want to run on, or instance, and how can I, start to leverage these capabilities. What you'll find over time is that more and more availability, will be present and be easier to find, and those sorts of things. So, AKS, Azure, there's a page I was looking at the other day where they've got a lot of examples of confidential computing that you can use. But we're also working with a variety of other companies in making sure that these capabilities are deployed and easy to find and easy to use.
Yeah, it makes sense. And that's, I think, like you said, sort of that first look for confidential computing. We're starting to see that pop up more and more at the major cloud providers. As you look at that space, I mean, you mentioned, you've worked with, companies that are in their own data center, but, you're also working with the cloud providers. From a security perspective and knowing what you can do, in the silicon level, and the fact that, new versions of the silicon tend to come out in the cloud faster, right? Every couple quarters or every year or so, we're sort of seeing, oh, it's available now. The data centers don't tend to turn them over nearly as quickly. As you think about that, like how does that manifest itself into maybe some security things that you can do in the cloud that either are going to be better than your data center, or just, aren't really reasonable to do in your data center? Anything sort of jump to mind in terms of taking advantage of the pace at which they're bringing silicon innovation?
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at the cloud, and the public cloud, and specifically, there are some things where and some specific, technologies and approaches and administrative controls that lend themselves very nicely to economies of scale, and I think that's where the cloud really takes advantage of and provides those capabilities to their customers. And it's, if you're going to provide a firewall technology, for example, it's so much better to provide it to millions of implementations than it is to provide it to one. And that applies to, compliance and detective controls and this is exactly the space where we expect to, there will come a time, they often say that legacy is the best that a solution can ever get, right? And whether you believe that or not, there will come a time when confidential computing is something that we take for granted, and the ability to run solutions and software within, a hardware protected enclave, regardless of what the marketing terminology is something that I think is something to look forward to and help enable, right? Is we want to get there where, of course I run it in of course I use confidential computing that's rooted in hardware. And I think getting to that position is something that will help solve a lot of the challenges that we have. And I think, embracing that at cloud scale is one of the best ways to lead the charge in that regard.
So, Garry, one last topic, and then we'll let you go. And it's maybe going in a slightly different direction here, right? So our exposure to Intel over the years, there turns out there's a lot of programs that quite frankly, a lot of times just don't get enough exposure, right? And maybe don't come to light because Intel maybe is sometimes considered one step removed at times from the direct engagement. And so what are some ways that people can more directly engage with Intel? Is it developer tools? Is it reference architectures? I know Intel creates a lot, so this is kind of your chance to talk about that and evangelize some of those programs a little bit as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. It's a constant battle to be able to. On one hand, it's a great thing to have 7 billion customers, or close to it. On the other hand, there are some challenges that come with that as well. And so we work very hard to try to come up with ways to interact with end customers at scale. We have programs like the Select Solutions program, where we develop recipes for solutions, and these recipes are the intent is to try to simplify the way that a solution gets built out to scale, and that's just one way. Working with the folks that we work with is also a really good way. So from a cloud scale perspective, when folks are out there utilizing some of the features that are available, and some of these features are just fantastic, to accelerate the, artificial intelligence or security solutions or what have you, is just utilizing those in general, and providing candid feedback is a great way to help evolve things in a way that's productive and useful and ultimately beneficial to everybody. As I said, it's, there are some challenges, and our goal is not necessarily to say, hey, now we've figured it out. This is the way we're going to interact, or this is the way we're going to, take feedback, but rather is how can we do better on a day-by-day basis in engaging with our end customers. And so, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. It's about continuous improvement in that regard, and trying to be, like I said, better listeners as time goes on.
Yeah, no, it's like you said, it's a challenge to be sort of matching all the innovation that goes on, and then trying to figure out the best way to, like you said, listen more than you talk and so forth. So very, very cool stuff. Garry, we could go on for a long time in a lot of these areas, so we appreciate the insight just into, how do you manage, like we talked about, this huge innovation roadmap that never stops, with customers that have, and especially in the cloud, scale challenges and performance challenges that we've never seen before. So it's always fascinating to kind of get the insight on that. If people ever wanted to kind of reach out to you and pick your brain, follow up on some of these things, what's potentially good ways to either engage with you or engage around the types of things that you're working on?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, and I think we can provide that. Actually, pretty easy to find there. I also have a unique email address, bignerd@intel.com, and so you can use that one as well. And I'd love to engage in any of these conversations that I can.
Yeah, no,
And
that's great.
Gary, we can tell you have some pull just because you have a custom email at Intel. So
Exactly.
that's how we. That alone was all you needed to say, man.
No,
that's fantastic.
It's great. It's great to have Pat Gelsinger back. We like the spunk he's had. Sort of the fight that he's bringing back into this. So we're excited for the hardware space. Aaron,
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's awesome to have Pat back, and in more ways than one. I have to be honest, I did have moments where I felt like a teenager and my parents were coming home after a weekend away, and then I was like, no, that's not what's. But the reality is he is extremely passionate, extremely focused, and has made it, very, very clear to me and many others that that we've got our work ahead of us, and our best years are ahead, our best products are ahead, and that we need to move forward and embrace that future. So it's really exciting.
Yeah,
fantastic.
We won't tell Pat that you had a party over the weekend and ran up the
right.
miles on his car, so Ferris Bueller style. Well, cool. Aaron, you want to wrap it up and take us home and maybe give a little teaser for what we're doing with Cloudcast Basics as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thank you everyone for listening. Certainly appreciate your time. And if you do like the show, please go ahead and give us some reviews. We're trying to bump up the reviews a little bit as well. And if you know somebody in the industry that is potentially new to cloud computing, go ahead and refer them to Cloudcast Basics as well. If you're not familiar with it, it's shown a slightly different format. What we're doing is we're doing actually seasons, and we're dropping those seasons about once a month. And we've got a new season coming up soon as well. So be on the lookout for that. So just search Cloudcast Basics in any of your podcast directories. And with that, on behalf of Brian, certainly thank you everyone for listening this week. And we'll look forward to talking to everyone next week.
Thank you for listening to the Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more shows, show notes, videos, and everything social media.